Hello everybody, welcome to Gladstone Planning Commission, 525 Portland Avenue, Gladstone, Oregon, and this is also online. The whole meeting is recorded. Call to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Langston?
Present.
Commissioner Natalie Smith?
Present.
Commissioner Malachi?
Here.
Commissioner Poole?
Here.
Commissioner Wentz? Commissioner Pat Smith? Chair Rowlett?
Here. Let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm going to go over the agenda for tonight. The first thing the Planning Commission will do is the consent agenda, and I'll read that part of it when we get to it. The regular agenda is going to be the planning report. Then we have two hearings, two quasi-judicial hearings, and there's a lot of boring and monotonous stuff I have to read before they'll start. And I'll do my best to explain everything. And if you have any questions, just stop us and we'll answer those for you as best we can. And then the fifth item is a discussion of the Planning Commission about the annual work plan, and then business from the Commission. Does anybody have anything they want to testify or say before we actually start the regular agenda?
That's not on.
That's not on our agenda tonight, which is the City Hall and office building. Any other things? If not, the consent agenda is listed below, which is our meeting minutes from February 19th, and it's all items listed below are to be considered routine and enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a commission member or a person in the audience requests specific items be removed from the consent agenda for discussion prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to adopt the consent agenda. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Malachi and Les Poole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. None opposed. Approved. So the regular agenda is the monthly planning report. Is there any additional correspondence or?
There is not.
Thank you. So we're ready for the planning report.
Thank you. So you'll see we had kind of around the same amount of customer contacts, phone calls, and counter visits. We had one pre-application conference for design review for conversion of a residential building on Portland Avenue to commercial uses. We haven't seen that application for the design review come through yet, but the property owner anticipates submitting that in the future. So we would be looking at the reuse of that property. There was one building permit for the Ron Tonkin showroom, which we had already reviewed through the design review land use decision. And then there aren't really any other updates. If you have questions about the future items, let me know. The only one I think that you might have interest of is the Cars Planet design review. That one has been pushed for the April Planning Commission meeting because it's still incomplete. We have coordinated with code enforcement to hopefully have them submit the basic submittal requirements so that we can place it on a commission agenda. So they're working on that one.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, that concludes staff summary.
All right. Is everybody ready? Public hearing, and I'm going to read this, and I apologize because I'm not the easiest person in the world to listen to. So I'm opening the public hearing on file number Z0037-19-D, Z0089-19-V like Victor, Z0039-19-CMP, Z0038-19 WBV like Victor, and Z0040-19 CMP, construction of a one-story, 2,177 square feet, 22,177 square foot building, and associated site improvements. And the public hearing this evening,
One comment. On here it says HNV. Can we get clarification on that?
Yeah, I have the application file right here. That may have been a typo. It's HMV per our records.
okay, so are we corrected?
Yep.
To everybody's satisfaction?
Yep.
The public hearing is open, and the hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Questions, if any, by the hearing body of staff. So once the staff report, then if we have questions, we'll ask at that time the commission. We'll then open the public hearing for testimony, and the time will be limited as follows. For applicants, we have a 3-minute limit. Persons in favor application, 3 minutes. Person opposed, 3 minutes. Rebuttal from the applicant. We will then close the public hearing, and no other comments will be heard from the public or the applicants. So that's after the presentation by staff and everybody testifies. Before we make a decision, we'll close the public hearing. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the commission, discussion and deliberation. So here's a whole bunch of other stuff. A decision may be made by the planning commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. So if we continue the hearing, we'll give notice of that. Any party may request a continuance of this hearing, or may request the record remain open for 7 days. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. So anyone that testifies can request a continuation, or anybody that's submitted material. If you wish to speak, please come forward to the microphone, and when you come forward, please state your name for the record. In making a decision, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report and are available in the room this evening. The testimony and evidence must address these criteria or other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, if you fail to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal that issue to the City Council or the Land Use Board of Appeals. The Planning Commission serves for the City Council, and so we'll make a decision tonight, and that can be appealed to the City Council. Unless the Commission is making a recommendation to City Council, the Commission's decision will be the final decision in this matter unless appealed to City Council. The appeal must be filed within 15 days in accordance with Chapter 17.92 of the Gladstone Municipal Code. Failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So it can be appealed to City Council, then to LUBA, then Circuit Court. At this time, I would like to ask members of the Commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Have members of the Commission visited the site?
Yes, I have visited the site.
Yes, I have.
I have visited the site, and I was discussing with Jim Wynot staff about the application this morning.
And I've driven by there many times. I didn't specifically go there and walk the site, but I'm very familiar with it.
I've been there more than once and actually visited today, and when I came in I announced we have an electric meter there.
Very good.
2 thumbs up.
Temporary power was just installed, yes.
Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the commission to hear this matter? Seeing none. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any planning commission member's ability to participate? Seeing none. And I should have asked, does anyone have any bias or financial interest in this?
No.
I do
No.
not.
No.
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 Nobody does. The staff will now present the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. So today we are considering design review application Z0037-19-D, a variance application, and 3 environmental overlay applications.
If anybody wants to get up and so you can see that screen, there's going to be a PowerPoint thing. Please just find a spot, make yourself at home.
The project is located at 18505 Portland Avenue. The proposed project would be construction of a 1-story, 22,177 square foot building and associated site improvements on a 1.97 acre parcel. This would function as the city's new civic center. The applicant is Jennifer Marsachek, I believe that's how she pronounces it, of Scott Edwards Architects on behalf of the city of Gladstone, who own the property. The zoning is LI, or light industrial. The dimensional standards for the LI zoning district, which we'll go over in a bit, are met with the proposed project. That zoning designation, that code section, also required specific landscape screening to protect the residential properties across Portland Avenue from visual impacts of the development. Those screening standards are met as well, as described in the staff report. So public noticing, as required by the city's code, was adhered to for this project, sent to the applicant, the city, the owner of the subject property, the city, and then adjacent property owners within 250 feet, as well as city agencies, Public Works, Gladstone Fire, engineering. And we've had many meetings, staff coordination with the consultants on the project, and city departments, things like that. So this has been in the works for a long time. So here's just your first kind of glance at the site plan. So you see the main building is on the right-hand side of the screen. It is the longer section. It's kind of split and organized in 2 distinct parts. That longer section is where the police department would go. The other section would be meeting halls and city administration, things like that. We'll go over that in more detail. The parking lots would be on the left-hand section of the site, and we can show you the landscaping and things like that as well as we go through. Section 17.24.020 of the city's zoning ordinance allows for community service facilities such as the proposed civic center as an outright allowable use in the LI, or light industrial zone. The subject zoning district requires no side, front, or rear structural setbacks, and as such the proposed project is compliant with all the applicable dimensional standards. The proposed landscaping and building design would function to screen the parking lot and loading areas from residential properties, and screening requirements have been met. The proposed development would include the main city hall, city offices, meeting rooms, police operations, record storage, and space to accommodate community meetings and court and council hearings. Additionally, 25,848 square feet of new landscaping is proposed on site. On-site improvements include new paved parking areas, concrete pedestrian walkways, stormwater treatment swales, interior and perimeter landscaping and lighting. Off-site improvements include new sidewalks and paved streets on Dunaway, Portland, and Watts, as well as new storm and water lines, street trees, landscaping, and lighting. The proposed exterior materials would consist of painted concrete, storefront windows, and exposed wood awnings at each entry, and would result in an aesthetically pleasing building exterior. The subject property is located in proximity to the termination point of the Glen Echo Wetland Complex, However, any remnant habitat on the site has already been historically graded, paved, and developed. Even though the water quality resource area overlay is present on site, no wetland vegetation, upland riparian habitat, or wetland features remain on the subject property. Despite the lack of on-site regulatory wetlands, planning staff submitted a formal notice to the Department of State Lands, or DSL, in 2018 in conjunction with a wetland memorandum report prepared by Pacific Habitat Services. DSL provided concurrence that the development proposed here would not impact any Title III wetlands. As such, the development standards of WQRA, Water Quality Resource Area section of the city's code, do not apply. There is a mapped habitat conservation area, or HACA, in the southwest portion of the subject property associated with the mapped Title III wetland on the property to the southwest. However, no habitat remains on the subject site. Despite this, the applicants have coordinated closely with staff to ensure that the HACA overlay area is landscaped with native vegetation to restore some habitat function. Since the only proposed development in the HACA overlay on the property would be work to improve the roadway, utility lines, removal of invasive vegetation, and construction of vegetated landscape filter strips and stormwater treatment facilities that would only include native vegetation, the proposed project would be considered exempt from Section 17.25.100 of the city's zoning code, which would normally require a habitat conservation area district development permit. So that's why the applicant was not required to apply for that. The construction of the city civic center would be compatible with the surrounding industrial, commercial, and civic, city public works next door, uses in the area, and has been designed to meet the criteria of the city's Section 17.44 Building and Siting Design Standards. Specifically, the proposed development has been designed and oriented to maximize solar access with south-facing principal building facades. Design elements and landscaping have been incorporated to prevent excessive summer heat gains, catch and direct summer breezes for natural cooling, and minimize effects of winter winds. Parking areas will be oriented away from the residential uses across Portland Ave. The applicant's submitted visual renderings and plan sets for the proposed project indicate that all building materials would meet the requirements of the code. Therefore, as proposed, the subject Civic Center project meets all of the applicable criteria from the Building and Siting Design Standards of Chapter 17.44. Regarding lighting, the applicant proposes 10 light pole fixtures in the parking lot, as well as 3 wall-mounted fixtures on the building. Section 17.44.0206 of the Gladstone Municipal Code establishes illumination level standards and requires that all on-site lighting shall be designed, located, shielded, or deflected so as not to shine into off-site structures or impair the vision of any driver of any vehicle. The proposed lighting plan indicates that all proposed lights will be shielded and downcast and avoid excessive off-site light spill. As such, the lighting standards of Section 17.44 are met. The proposed landscaping will result in approximately 30% coverage of the 1.97 acre property, greatly exceeding the 15% landscape coverage requirement of the Gladstone's code. Additionally, the proposed landscaping plan incorporates 63 new trees along street frontages and in the interior landscaping of the subject site. Native plant species are emphasized on the landscaping plan, and a large stormwater detention swale is proposed to be planted with appropriate plantings with the dual benefit of improved on-site water infiltration and establishment of a landscaped wetland feature. However, the proposed landscaping plan does not include a commitment for continuous landscape maintenance, so special condition of approval number 2 is recommended to ensure compliance with subsection 17.46.0204. Additionally, due to City Public Works right-of-way improvement requirements, the applicant is requesting a variance from the 10-foot landscape planter strip width requirement only along Dunaway, so the top portion of the site. The variance findings will be addressed later on in this presentation. Otherwise, all applicable landscaping standards are met. The proposed project would be subject to the parking requirements of Table 1 of Section 17.48.030, which would require 1 parking space for every 75 square feet of public meeting space, as well as 1 space per every administrative employee. The proposed 81 parking spaces meet the minimum and maximum parking requirements of the municipal code. However, special condition number 5 is proposed to require that 10% of the parking spaces are dedicated to carpool or van pool parking per the parking requirements 18.48.030. The project was designed based off the recommendations of a traffic study, and no traffic impacts are anticipated. Special condition number 8 is recommended so that Public Works can have final review of the plan set that is submitted to county building codes prior to building permit issuance. The proposed project was designed to improve the existing stormwater facilities and ensure that proper drainage of surface waters was addressed. The proposed project incorporates a system of stormwater facilities, including a vegetated flow-through planter with side slopes in the parking lot. The proposed stormwater facilities provide both water quality and flow control for the proposed development's impervious areas to meet City of Gladstone stormwater standards. The applicant has clarified since the decision was finalized that a slight modification to the proposed plan set would remove a small stormwater planter at the northeast corner of the building. Instead of the planter, water would be directed through a trench drain to the large main stormwater area, which still has the capacity to handle this amount of runoff. Additional improvements include updates to the public stormwater system along Dunaway Ave and south down Watt Street to Barclay Ave, which will be completely replaced with new catch basins, manholes, and storm pipe. The proposed project will ensure adequate provisions are made for proper drainage of surface waters to preserve natural flow of water courses and to prevent soil erosion and flooding of neighboring properties or streets, consistent with the requirements of Section 17.56. The applicants are seeking a variance from Section 17.46.020B, which states that a parking area shall be separated from any lot line adjacent to a street by a landscape strip at least 10 feet in width. As proposed, the only feasible project alignment along Dunaway includes a parking area separated from the street by a landscape strip only 5 feet in width. As such, the applicant is requesting a reduction from the 10-foot landscape strip requirement to a 5-foot landscape strip width only along the length of Dunaway Ave. Planning staff has reviewed this request in reference to the applicable provisions of the Gladstone Municipal Code, which are shown up on the slide there. Based on our review, and it's discussed in the findings of the staff report, staff recommends approval of the variance application. The specific findings to support the recommendation are in the staff report, and we're happy to answer any specific questions you have or go into more detail.
Commissioners?
So on page 3-4, number 2, got a couple comments here. So it says it's prepared by Lingo Hansen. Is that
Yep.
Properly formatted for this document?
It's what was on the landscaping plan.
Okay.
So we include that just so if somebody else is referencing back the landscaping plan, that they're sure that they have the right one that was submitted. So.
And then the subsection C, it says shall be replaced with new plant material. I think that should actually be with appropriate plant material.
So that's only in the case that the plants do not take on the site. So you would be replacing them with new plant material. Yeah.
It has to still be ones that match all the criteria, right?
Correct, and it has to be consistent with what was previously approved on their landscaping plan. So they're limited to that. Yeah. Did you have any other questions? I'll
Yeah,
just
I
make a
definitely do.
conclusion statement if that's okay, and then I'll turn it over to you.
On 3-8,
Oh.
there is a comment here that it's not anticipated to result in any increase in ambient noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I question that because of the police station being put there. Would the police station not increase the ambient noise in that area?
So the applicant included in their application materials that based upon kind of the police department's description of the noise sources, that it's not kind of exceeding that decibel amount over and above what's currently there now or what has been there in the past, which has been kind of a storage yard. You have Public Works next door, which I don't know if you've ever had a meeting in the Public Works trailer, but I mean, it can be noisy over there in general. The surrounding properties, most of them are industrial. So there is, a fair bit of noise going on there already. So it's not anticipated to go above and beyond that or cause an impact on adjacent properties.
And then on page 3-12, second to last paragraph, right about the middle, it's talking about how the stormwater surcharges, I think that's supposed to be surges.
I'm sorry.
It says that the stormwater surcharges during heavy storms, I think that's supposed to be surges.
So that is directly from their feedback from Public Works, and I believe that's an accurate term, but we can ask Public Works.
Pertains to fines that we've received in the past, I'm assuming.
I'm not sure. I think that the intent there of what they're trying to explain is that it's not able to currently handle the capacity during heavy storm flows. So
I think it could be that charge that when we overflow, we have to report that, and we get DEQ fines the city for those overflows.
Yeah, and Public Works, I think Jim's here.
David, do you remember that? Do you think that's correct?
With respect to the precise word, I'm not sure. I mean, it could be surges, it might be a surcharge, but maybe Jim can clarify.
Probably both.
Unfortunately, yes.
Commissioners?
I think she had a conclusion.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
sorry,
sorry.
I'll just conclude and then you can ask me more questions as needed. So planning staff's recommending approval of the proposed project with 5 standard conditions and 10 special conditions of approval. And here's the motion and the resolution for reference. So if you have any questions, I'm here, I'm available, let me know.
I have a question. On page 3-4, it talks about interpretation, questions of intent or interpretations, and any conditions will be resolved by the planning director for the city of Gladstone. Who is the planning director?
So technically it's me with, Jackie.
Okay.
It's just what the code has always kind of referenced, but it's really whoever's your acting kind of planning manager or planning staff liaison. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've had that discussion in the past where it's implied it makes sense that they're saying the person that's speaking on behalf of the planning director.
Correct, and you find that often in local governments codes where it's really staff who's reviewing it, but it'll say planning director.
So the 81 parking spots, and 11 of those are on street, and that's included in the 81, so there's 70 spots paved. And those 11 spots are on Dunaway, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
And maybe you're not the person to ask, but there's a lot of empty space over in the other, the other 2 lots that are on both sides of this. I wonder, I guess employees could park there as well, right?
Right, if there's a need, it doesn't seem like they're gonna have a parking shortage issue, but there is available on-street parking if so.
Thank you. Commissioners?
I've got a question, and I don't know if this is the time, but when I look at the aerial map and I look at the notification, I've got some concerns about the school. And I know I'm getting, right now we're talking about this specific project, and the school is slightly outside of the notification area, but I think a deeper discussion on the traffic flow out on Portland Avenue is warranted, and I've got some concerns about the intersection. And again, I understand that the intersection and some of these things aren't specific to this, but I'm sure that others have some thoughts and questions, and we'll delve into that.
Certainly. So I didn't include that level of detail in the findings because it was addressed fully in the traffic study. So they look at every intersection and the capacity at peak hours. They meet, all their kind of requirements for general traffic study calculations, things like that. And it's my understanding that the applicant incorporated all of the recommendations of the traffic study into the proposed design. Given the peak times of the high school and the intersection kind of capacity, it wasn't anticipated that the use of the Civic Center would have an adverse impact on the circulation or traffic at the high school. So that is something that they did look at specifically. It's just in the traffic study.
In that traffic study, though, did they look at times when there would be games? And then, because when there's football games and meetings at the Civic Center, that's a whole different ball game.
So they did look at peak hours. I don't recall, because it was a while ago that I looked at it, if they specifically called out games. But they do have enough on-site kind of parking, and they did look at access ways. There's multiple ways to get to the Civic Center. Everybody wouldn't be coming, exclusively by the high school to get there. I think that kind of played into their calculations.
Okay.
I'm not completely satisfied with the reply on the street, and the reason being is that it's obviously a non-conforming intersection. Right? It just is. It never would have been built this way. It is what it is. And it's going to be the primary access, and at 5 o'clock it closes. So when you're on Glen Echo there, and the kids are out there, I see some public safety concerns that aren't necessarily addressed in a traffic study. I've been around a lot of traffic studies that cover a lot of things, but we've got a strange animal there. We've got a really not a good situation at rush hour. I'll just say that. And again, I know that technically, legally, the project may not require some additional attention to that intersection, but if we don't do it, I think we're missing the boat, and I think we're creating a problem down the road.
Certainly
really
understand the concern. So two comments. Jim, why not, may be able to weigh in. I know that there's, the city recently prepared their transportation plan. That might be one of the kind of intersections or areas where there are planned improvements in the future, so Jim can maybe touch on that. Also, the applicant is here today. I think there's a representative. Thank you. Right. And I hope he can speak to the specifics of the traffic study maybe a little bit more, since they're the ones who helped prepare that. So.
Sure.
I didn't notice. Was there a TriMet stop there?
No, there's no bus stop out in front. That's what I asked. Otherwise, they would have been required to do improvements to a transit stop. Yep.
Because there's a city building, we're going to want that. I know the traffic study usually is what demands that, but the purpose of that building is going to want that.
It's not a code requirement. It's certainly something, wouldn't hurt the city to look at, but it wasn't something we could require out of the project per the code.
That was something we were going to discuss in that civic building stuff we were looking at before. We never finished that.
Yeah, and again, my comment about the schools also is that regardless of whether or not the school is in the notification area, if you look, the school safety zone, that school traffic zone literally runs right up to where we are. So I know I'm getting in the weeds, but I ask you all to drive up to that intersection and look at the southeast corner of Glen Echo, and then put yourself on Glen Echo and come down to the site, and obviously you're pointing at a telephone pole, and the traffic that's going to be trying to leave at 5 o'clock at night from Dunaway out of there is going to lead to trouble. It's very glaring to me. With regards to the actual building and the layout and the work that's been done, I don't see anything there that's a red flag, but I see this as being problematic.
Anything else? The applicant may now present testimony and arguments. Is the applicant here? So for the public, the applicant is a representative of the city of Gladstone. The Planning Commission is an independent body appointed by the City Council, and we're you know, we live here in Gladstone just like you do, so we're not really employed by the city, although, you know, we certainly speak for the city a lot, but we're here for the same reasons you are, and we appreciate that you're here as well, the applicant. So your name for the record, please?
Andrew Kraus with Scott Edwards Architects. Sorry Jennifer Marsacek was unable to be here this evening, but I'll try to fill her place. I'm happy to address any individual comments. A few, I guess I'll begin with the term surcharge is a technical term.
Okay.
It's associated with a downward flow of water that develops a head behind it or a pressure behind it, and therefore forces the uphill running water, pressurizes it. So it is an accurate term. It does apply here. What's been happening is that there is so much water entering the storm system right now that it backs up the water, making it back up and flood elsewhere. So that is an accurate term.
Thank you.
In regard to the traffic analysis, I would encourage you to read that analysis thoroughly. It is well above and beyond what would be required for a project like this. Now, of course, the conclusions that it draws are open to interpretation of you, I, anyone else. So I'm certainly not going to argue with those results. I understand that you live here and probably know conditions way better than I do. That being said, an example that you used was 5 p.m. That's not such a bad time for a school standpoint. It's also a time at which I can envision what sort of traffic you'd envision coming out of the Civic Center at that time. This Civic Center project is more than 50% police function, which has no peak capacity. The other functions of it are court and business administration, etc. The occupancy of the building overall is pretty limited. In fact, almost any other project that you would put on this site would generate far more trips than what this Civic Center will. That doesn't solve your problem.
Right.
But I'm saying that the Civic Center isn't the cause of your problem. So this is your project. I'd encourage you to consider whether you want to delay the project, etc., to try to solve a problem that is really a problem beyond this particular project site.
I think some of that traffic information came about because the traffic problems on that road, Dunway, has been brought before us before. And it was usually related to game days because people from the games were parking on that street, blocking all the traffic there. So we have to assume that that will still happen.
Agreed.
Because it happened in the past on that very location.
Agreed.
So we have to figure out what we're going to do to deal with that.
I agree. And if there's anything that we can do feasibly to improve that intersection or to decrease traffic or anything, we're happy to do it. So within the bounds of the project, anything that you can envision that we may be able to contribute to aid in that, we're happy to do.
I think some of this discussion needs to happen at the end of the hearing. Right now, we're discussing the application, and the applicant has met the criteria.
Okay, so I did have a couple questions for you. Let me find them here really quick. So I understand that this new building is going to be the new Instant Operations Center for the city. And I did notice you had the solar on the roof for that. Is there also going to be battery backup for that as well?
Yes. There will be a permanent generator that will provide backup power.
Okay.
There will also be a portable generator so that the Emergency Operations Center or Incident Response Center can actually power itself as well.
Okay.
That is, the community room double serves as incident response.
In a similar vein, the 10 light fixtures outside, are those going to be set up to be able to handle a grid down as well?
Yes, in fact, by definition, they will be on in emergency scenario.
Okay.
So the capacity of that generator covers all emergency egress lighting, all major functions of the building, and that does in fact include site lighting.
Okay. I know that I don't know if you had the picture. Can you show the one that showed the buildings on it?
Just the site
That
plan?
one's fine. So, I remember the police department had specifically asked before that they had a protected walkway between the police department and the court. And looking at the plan, it looked like the only walkway there was the lobby itself. Is the intention that that will be what they're using for that?
Yes, it is. There would be an internal circulation between those two functions. And if and when you look at the overall building footprint, you'll note that there are reception counters for both admin as well as the police that are linked together by that lobby.
But will they have a protected walkway as well?
When you say protected, do you mean isolated from
Yeah.
any other? No, there is no isolated connection between them.
Okay.
Now, the police department has been an integral part in all of this planning, so the current configuration they have expressed their satisfaction with.
Do you have this document? What does it say? This is the equipment is going to be shielded with the metal panels, the ones on the roof, right?
Yes, rooftop equipment.
Are those going to be those metal panels going to be painted at all?
They're pre-finished metal, so yes, it's a baked-on paint that's intended to last the length of the building.
Okay. I think that's all I have right now. Anybody else?
Commissioners?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you.
What about
Yep.
so regarding the TriMet stuff, I know she said we can't require it, but as this is a city building, and people are going to be trying to go to get to court, to come to these meetings, go to city council. What is the feasibility of getting a TriMet stop at that location?
I can't answer that question, but I will point out that there's a bike lane that's been added on Portland Avenue specifically for this project.
Right.
So between the traffic widening and the bike lane and the sidewalk area, you're getting quite a bit of pedestrian as well as vehicular circulation access.
My concern was more of people being able to get to court and be able to get to city council, be able to get to planning commission.
Got it. The current mass transit plan does not include for anything along that portion of Portland Avenue. So it's sort of beyond this project's scope.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the chance to speak.
Now, we're going to have public testimony in favor of the application. If anyone has not filled out a card and wishes to speak in favor of the application, it only takes a second.
I only have one that has submitted a card, and I'm not sure if it's in support or opponent, but it's Larry Graves.
Larry, are you in favor or opposed?
Yes.
Both?
Well, a little of each.
So
If
just
you-
go ahead and come up and just say your name if you want to just put your name in for the public record.
It's Larry Graves. I'm a resident within 100 feet of the proposed what have you. And if I'm, I actually just came to ask if we could get landscaping from this
You can go ahead and point. Go up and point at
border
it.
that along Watts
Uh-huh.
that will go to well.
Go ahead.
Go up to the screen and
Be from here down to the street where you're planning on putting a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Can we get landscaping such as shade trees along there? But the other thing that came up while listening to this was I was told that Dunaway couldn't possibly go through because that was a wetland area and it would be a tremendous burden to try to take care of that. But tonight I just heard that it's not really a wetland, so what's with that?
Melissa, can you explain the delineation part of
Sure.
that?
No problem. So there is definitely a wetland feature nearby, and this is kind of near the termination point of that drainage. So historically, there was probably some type of wetland on site, but starting in the late 60s, early 70s, this whole area was graded and there was a lot of fill brought in. It's likely at that point that the kind of wetland feature ceased to be present on the property. So there was, like I went over in our staff report for the PowerPoint, there was scientific evidence and kind of on-site report and analysis that was prepared in the form of a memo, looking at whether or not there were still wetlands on the property. That was sent to the Department of State Lands, who regulates wetlands, so they would let us know, if there was any kind of evidence of wetlands still on the property. They concurred that there's no feature on this property. Whether or not there's wetlands that still exist associated with that complex is a different question. There's certainly wetlands still there in the Glen Echo wetlands area. It just doesn't appear it extends this far down anymore.
Well, and at the end of that road where the fence is, I think there probably still is there.
Correct, it could be off-site a bit. I know that there was another property in this area that applied and did a wetland delineation a few years back that also found there were no wetlands there. So a little hard to tell what the current status is of the habitat down in that area. It seems
all
like
filled.
It seems like it's more intact in the upper portion.
So we've been sold a bill of goods as far as we want the street to go this way instead of that way? The through street for the police asked for another exit, another way to get out if Portland Boulevard was blocked. And
Do we have that
it
slide
appears
that
that it's
shows
going to be Watts.
the streets?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that overlay is a good indication because it shows
And
the
I think
property.
he's-
Overlay, okay. For you guys?
Yeah,
So you
there.
can see that on the actual property there isn't. I mean, it's barely on the wetlands. But if that road were to continue, you'd be going into wetland.
Okay, so that is wetland, but you're saying they found that it's really not wetland,
It's
but
not on this
The
property.
Mhm.
okay, so
property.
it's not on the property,
Yeah.
but it's beyond on the.
Correct.
Okay, that helps a lot. All right.
And
that does it
you
for
had
me.
another question. I'm sorry, what was your first comment?
There was
about
a
again?
landscape
I think
question.
landscape question.
Well, yeah.
So that would be off property, the landscape area you're requesting. I'm not sure whether Public Works has any plans to
So,
put landscaping. I believe that would
This
be in
is the
their
wrong
right
place
of
to
way.
address that.
It wouldn't be a requirement that the code would kind of allow the planning commission to add on. They're already meeting all of the landscape requirements of the code. There would be nothing that the city could do to require them to add additional landscaping off of that property, which isn't subject to this application right now.
Thank you.
Chair Roulette, I have one additional, and
Okay.
I'm not sure proponent or opponent. Leah Brown would like to testify.
Leah?
My name's Leah Brown. I just was kind of curious about the Dunaway Road going through, because that house right there is mine. And it's kind of hard to see how the road could go this way and this way without cutting into part of my property. So is that road going through there?
No.
So
Is that a different is that traffic control meeting or?
the road would not be extending onto any private property other than the
Okay.
subject
Right.
property site.
Actually, this existing property
Mhm.
is giving up part of their, part of that property to put this roadway through.
Okay.
Okay, so right now, this property is all the way through. So the road is
Okay.
actually being.
Is that the only road that's going in, or is it going in through Dunaway as well?
No,
No.
No, okay, just that one. Okay.
yeah, so this property
Is there going to be any fencing, or is it going to be a walking path that goes through to Dunaway, as there kind of is now?
yes, there's going to be a continuous sidewalk all the way down to Watts Street here.
Uh-huh.
So, yes, roadway, sidewalk, landscape.
Oh, I'm not on Watts. I'm-
On the opposite side.
I'm on Dunaway that way.
Yeah.
This way.
Yes.
So, nothing there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right where the tip of the wetlands is.
Correct.
Mhm.
or
Yes,
whatever
all
it is.
well off the impact area.
Okay, so you're not going through that way. Okay. All right, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify in favor, in opposition, or neutral? Does the applicant wish to provide rebuttal testimony?
I actually do have another question for the applicant. On that top parking lot area, why does that not go through to the road, the side?
It already has one roadway connection to Dunaway and one to Watts.
Yeah.
A third one is normally frowned upon, especially if it's proximity.
It's in the corner.
Yeah, the thing I was worried about is people on the bottom one who find there's no parking and then they go up the road. That one would be a clear line of sight, whereas the one around the corner would be a blocked line of sight, right?
So this has a loop sort of circulation, 2 ways to go in and out.
Yeah.
And this is all secure, dedicated
Yeah.
specifically for the
I gotcha.
There's a gate.
I have one more question. As you were explaining about giving up some of the property, is that why the request for a variance for not having to go all the way back with the setback was requested?
Yes, the variance, but that's a function along this roadway
Okay.
area. Because of having given up, I think it was 8 feet of roadway right-of-way in order to get the parking aisle as well
Okay.
as the two-way traffic in.
Yeah, I was curious why that was requested. Thank you for the clarification.
So you can come back up.
State your name again, though.
Okay. My name's Leah Brown. There's one other question I didn't ask was, is that the direction they're bringing the utilities in for the building? Is from Dunaway on the other side, where I live? Because that's what
The
I've been told.
utilities all be underground.
Yes, I know. Are they going to be tearing up Dunaway Avenue where it's at now? Or are they coming in through Portland Avenue? Because I heard they were coming in through from, like, Addy.
You want to just point on the map where they're coming in?
Give her the official answer.
Really, done away in this area,
Mhm.
much of that will get disrupted for utilities, but power and all underground is more or less coming in off of Dunaway.
Off Civic Center.
Off.
Really no, yes,
Okay, off from Portland Avenue,
yes,
that direction?
I'm not
Okay.
aware of anything other than there's storm drain lines that are running through here.
Okay.
They're going to have to get reconfigured,
Okay.
but I doubt any of it will extend into or beyond that intersection.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We have one additional, Rod Willett.
Hi, I'm Rod Willett. I live on Watts, and I would like some reassurance about any change in increased traffic coming down Watts. At this time, there's a lot of children because it's almost a dead end. It does curve around onto Addy, but would prefer not having a lot of trucks and fire trucks and police cars using it as instead of Portland Avenue.
The fire department is not relocating there, so that part won't be an issue. The police is relocating, though.
So will that be their main exit and entrance? Would it become Watts Street?
Looks like it'd be the entrance.
It's my understanding the police department just needs a secondary emergency ingress, egress, and that their main kind of everyday use would be from Portland Avenue on Dunaway.
Well, we certainly don't mind police cars going by, but if there were trucks from the business just on the other side, that would be a real concern.
I don't believe that's anticipated.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Does staff have anything they wish to add or recap?
No, but I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Questions?
I have just a quick general question back to the schools. I was down there today, and it occurred to me, and obviously the logistics of this and the legality of it can be worked out, but we're building a parking lot for most of the time at 5 o'clock or whenever the building closes, the parking lot's there. 6 o'clock it's game time. So we're also building a parking lot that people that come to the school events are going to assume is going to be open. And it's not really, I think, a question for this decision, but something that we might think about security-wise and how that would work, because, you know, obviously if we build this building, which we will, and we have parking there, and we've got the best football team in the league, we're going to fill that up. So just something that logistically we need to keep in mind, even though I don't think it's one of the criteria here.
And the applicant might be able to weigh in on this, but I believe that there would be signs for civic center parking to kind of identify it as being for that use, that it wouldn't be kind of intended for overflow parking for the high school.
Well, I mean, so one of the things, you know, we keep talking about 5 o'clock, but the fact is most of the time that this room is occupied isn't earlier in the day, right? We have this occupied mostly on Tuesdays, right?
Yep.
For meetings. And it's after 5 usually.
Yeah. I think with that logic too, you got to realize that no one is downstairs. Like, we're up here, but no one else is down there. So.
Someone's working downstairs. My only concern was, like, you know, living on Dartmouth, I know that when there's big football games, there's parking all the way down here from the high school. So that was my only thought.
All right. I'm going to close the public testimony portion of the hearing.
You mean you're going to ask for a motion?
It says here I can just close it. Let's do a motion.
I make a motion that we close the our meeting from public testimony.
Natalie Smith
I second.
and Commissioner Langston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. None opposed. Motion passes. Public hearing portion is closed. Any further questions from staff or commission? This is the deliberation portion of the application. Discussion by the commission.
It seems like the biggest concern is around the traffic, in that intersection specifically. Me personally, I would like to try that, but I understand we can't request it. I think that is a dilemma for us because I think people use that to get here.
I think we can call TriMet and talk to them. I think we should do it if you really want to contact TriMet and ask them something. I think we should do it in an organized way.
Yeah.
Maybe have one person.
It should probably be done as part of this project, though, since it could affect the sidewalk changes.
Thing is that I don't think we can make a condition for TriMet to stop there. It's just not part of what this application can do.
Well, we can't make TriMet stop there, but if we can at least make the request, it would be better to do it early rather than tear up the sidewalk that we just recreated.
So do you want to take that and do that? And then report, just send whatever you find out to Tammy.
Sure, we can do that.
And myself, and then just kind of keep it low key and just talk to them and see what they say, and just tell them you live in Gladstone and you'd like to see them stop there. That's what I would do if I did it.
I don't imagine that they would make a huge alteration to the design. I mean, I've seen bus stops in the middle of dirt, you know, so I'm sure they would be able to make it work.
Yeah, I think there's a process, and I'm not remembering it right off the top of my head, because during the Gladstone Community Festival, I don't know if that's a request that goes to City Hall to contact TriMet to temporarily relocate a bus stop?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct, so you would need to go through Tammy.
We can talk to Tammy.
Okay. Because I know that sometimes we've had to temporarily relocate them because of the parade. So, that's the only thing I know.
So what about the traffic, or is there anything else we want to do or need to discuss about that?
Well, it's a bit of a conundrum, because the answer is yes, and at the same time, we're here for a specific project that meets our code requirement, I could pontificate how we need to upgrade our code and some of the things we're using, but the reality is that the project meets that, but it doesn't change the fact that we at the same time have another thing to look at here, and that is a separate issue of how do we, with very limited funds, address that intersection as a separate item, because it's problematic, and again, it was problematic before this. This certainly isn't going to be a deal breaker. I agree with the gentleman that spoke earlier, but I see a public safety issue that we're going to exacerbate simply by bringing more people, more traffic to that location. Does it reach a criteria where we should say no to this? I'm not implying that at all, but I want to be on the record that gets some focus. And I know that Glen Echo is in the city's transportation plan as a possible street for future sidewalks. If you look at that street and look at reality, what we need to do is look at sidewalks on the south side of Glen Echo, and that means addressing that corner, that southeast corner that is, I can't tell you how many times I've had kids almost get hit there just when I go by, and it's across the street. So let's just make a note of this, and certainly I again am not questioning the actual project. I like what I see here.
Commissioners, discussion and deliberation.
So we have a couple things here, right? Approval of a design review and a variance. Do you guys want to variance?
Yeah, so we have like a few.
5 foot instead of 10.
What is it?
It's 5 foot instead of 10 on that top border.
Yeah. And there's
On Dunaway, correct, sir?
right, Dunaway, yeah.
I don't see a problem with that.
No. There's
Oh, would that be an issue for a fire truck? It's going to...
well,
It's a landscape, sidewalk from 5 feet to 10 feet. Doesn't have any impact on traffic or fire trucks.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. I don't have any problem with it.
So if we're ready to make a motion.
okay.
Go ahead, you ready?
I make a motion, or just on the variance then?
How about both?
We've got
I'll be
10.
ready to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If we're all, as far as the design review goes, we're all good there too. Okay.
Go ahead, Nathan.
I think Melissa had a slide that might help you.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. I make a
I
I make a
move.
motion to approve design review Z0037-19-D with conditions, and variance Z0089-19-V and environmental overlays as proposed and pursuant to the staff recommendations.
Very good.
I second that motion.
Commissioner Langston and Commissioner Natalie Smith. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Langston?
Yes.
Commissioner Natalie Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Malachi?
Yes.
Commissioner Poole?
Yes.
Commissioner Wentz?
Yes.
Chair Rowlett?
Yes. Very good.
Yes.
Thank you. This is going to be really exciting, I think, and an improvement of that area, and I think you guys that live there will agree. And it's a definite improvement over what's there now, for sure. And exciting for the city. If you've lived here a long time, this is going to be a great thing for the city.
Yeah, we're going to miss this old place.
Not too much.
Not too much.
Not too much, no.
What we'll miss most is the bucket of water that's out there, the bucket catching a leak.
When the roof is leaking, yes. Okay.
All right, you want to take a recess?
Just about 2 minutes.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll be on to the next public hearing, which is for the Clarendon office building. We're ready to start the public hearing.
Alrighty, reconvening.
Do I have to read this whole thing again? Yeah? Do I? I have to read that whole thing again, don't I?
Yeah, you're opening a whole new hearing.
All right, the public hearing is now open for file number Z0079-19-D, a new 4-unit office building that we'll call the Clarendon office building for this purpose. And the public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Questions, if any, by hearing body for staff. We will open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. It's 3 minutes. I don't see a lot of people. Do we have any cards, Tammy?
1.
Okay, good. So persons in favor, persons opposed, rebuttal, and then we'll close the public hearing, and no comments will be heard from the public hearing or the applicants once we close that portion. Final comments by staff. Questions of staff, if any, by the commission. Discussion and deliberation by the commission. The decision may be made by the planning commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. Any party may request a continuance of this hearing, or may request the record remain open for 7 days. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you will receive. If you wish to speak, please come forward to the microphone. When you come forward, please state your name for the record. In making a decision, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report and are available in this room this evening. The testimony and evidence must address these criteria and other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, if you fail to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal that issue to the City Council, Land Use, or the Land Use Board of Appeals. Unless the commission is making a recommendation to the City Council, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so the decision will be final unless appealed tonight. The final decision in the matter must be appealed to the City Council. May be appealed. An appeal must be filed within 15 days and in accordance with Chapter 17.92 of the Gladstone Municipal Code. Failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court, which would be the last part, or the last appeal. At this time, I would ask the members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Have members of the commission visited the site? We'll just go down.
No, I haven't visited the site, and I have no bias.
I have no bias, and I visited this site, was it a year ago this came before us? I haven't been to it recently, but I drive past it.
I went to the site last time, but not this time.
I'm familiar with the site, and I walked the dog up there, so she likes it.
Yeah. I actually drove by again for another look, and it looks like it did a year ago.
Same. I haven't been out there, but now I finally get to say something because Hans and I walked up the stairs together, so we did talk, but it will cause no bias.
Did you talk about the application?
We introduced ourselves.
Okay.
That's
Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the commission to hear this matter? No one does. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any planning commission member's ability to participate? No one does. Now we're into the hearing portion. Staff will now present the staff report.
Hi, we're going to look at design review application Z0079-19 design review, or D.
And please relocate, excuse me for interrupting, relocate if you want to see the slide thing.
As some of you all might know, this application was approved last year, and it was approved in 2017. It expired December 14th of 2018. The property since the time of the previous approval has been sold, and during the time of the sale, which was finalized in October, the decision expired prior to asking for an extension for the land use. So we're looking at this project again. Nothing has changed in the plan as it was submitted, and so this is the same project. It's a two-story, 9,940 square foot office building with 4 tenant spaces. The proposed use is going to be 1 medical office and 3 just general office spaces. And so that's kind of the project. You can see the property is located. There's 82nd Avenue. Let's see if my laser pointer's going to work. It doesn't really show up on the thing at all. So the star is where the project site is. There's a small park right adjacent, and as the project is proposed, there'll be a little bit more landscaping kind of beefed up to kind of keep that park area as is. Here's just an overall picture of the site. It is 3 tax IDs combined in the zone in the C3 zoning, which is the general commercial district. The property is 0.043 acres in size. Public notice was sent to property owners within 250 feet. The City of Gladstone, Public Works, Gladstone Fire, Police Department, Engineering. The comments received from Public Works mirrored the comments that we received at the additional application addressing water main upgrades, stormwater infiltration, and streets and sidewalk pedestrian approach improvements. We did get some renderings this time, so there's some nice visual aids that kind of show what the building will look like. This is the primary entrance that you'll see on the west elevation. The new 4 units will be about 8,428 square feet of gross leasable area. Sanitary, sewer, storm, and water are currently being designed as required. The parking is 75% occupied for general office and 25% with a medical office. The parking calculations require 25 spaces. The proposed parking is 27 spaces. 6 of them are on street, so there'll be 21 on-site and 6 on-street parking spaces. There's 2 entrances for the site that you can see, one coming off at the northern side and one coming off on the westerly side of the building, of the parking area, to create kind of nice circulation. The roundabout on the end, there's no through going through to 82nd there, so it'll be a roundabout with kind of a loop through for flow through for access. The property to the south is an apartment building. In counting parking spaces, it's hard to say. I think it's 8 units. I'm not 10. Is it 10 units? It is 8. Okay. So it's an 8-unit apartment complex. The building is kind of off to the back of it, and so it isn't parallel to the apartment complex. And the way the building is designed, we'll see in future elevation renderings, is that the building has a lot of windows and it's very open, but the area adjacent to the apartment complex doesn't have that high amount of windows that kind of allow privacy for the residents of the apartment building. The landscaping requirement is 15%. The landscaping proposed is 25.3. I think that does aid in the kind of keeping of that little park area, and you'll see that it's more along the Clarendon Street at the north property line is where that, and that's also increasing the ability to store stormwater on the property. And then here's it didn't come out on the slide as well. This is the landscape plan, and you can see you've got about 10 larger street trees coming in, one at each corner, and then kind of around that corner between the two entrances, there's a good amount of street trees with additional landscaping, and then internal landscaping between the parking spaces, and then in that swale, that drainage area adjacent to the park, and then the boundary between the property line and that little park area and 82nd Drive. I thought this would show up a little bit better, sorry. And here's more of the rendering showing the elevations. The east elevation is visible from 82nd Drive and Oakfield Road. The north elevation has frontage on Clarendon Street, and the south elevation is 82nd Drive and East Berkeley, and then the apartment building. You kind of see how the design kind of changes at the point where it would be directly adjacent or abutting closer to that apartment building. And that's kind of in conclusion. The applicant intends to move forward with this project in a timely manner, so we don't have to deal with the expiration again. At this point in time, the previous applicant had started to make a building permit application with the county, and that building permit application has been reviewed and approved by everything but planning staff and public works with the city of Gladstone. And so the intention is that this project will actually be completed within the year.
I seem to recall last time we spent a lot of time talking about the parking and I think the lights on the south side.
Okay.
Did you, when you were reviewing the last one, did we actually add any additional conditions last time?
We have they did provide a lighting plan, and that in the previous one, the lighting plan was kind of looked like it was an after fact, and so in the lighting plan that's included here, I didn't put it in a slide, but it is included in the packet that you got.
Yes.
And that lighting plan, I believe, does address some lighting issues because it shows kind of the way that the light is going to kind of radiate through the property. It's got the pole-lighted lamps in two main areas.
I didn't see an application in here.
Yeah, it's got the two light poles. The lighting seemed to be adequate per the code currently. It seemed like this lighting plan might not have been part of the original plan set that you reviewed. I wasn't sure.
There's one lighting condition attached to the previous design review approval. It just says on-site lighting shall comply with subsection 17.44.020, 4 and 5, including compliance with IES standards. Dark sky fixtures shall be used to the extent possible. It says the submitted photometric plan indicates applicable standards will be met. Developer to submit final lighting plan showing compliance prior to issuance of final occupancy permit. So it sounds like they've advanced a little bit and have submitted a lighting plan to us as part of this application.
And a quick clarification, is really the concern about the residences next door, from what I remember?
Yeah.
Because we've got, you know, a nice commercial building, but you got folks right next door.
Yeah, and if you look at, let's go to the general layout, the lighting is in the center portion of the parking area, and it looks like it's one pole, and so it doesn't look like it's going to be too radiant. And when you look at the arc of the radiance, it looks like it's pretty well contained and shielded.
I think there was one on the side of the building.
And downward.
There is a light on each entrance.
Yeah.
Right entrance and exit.
Yeah, there isn't an entrance on the apartment side of the building, which is that, here, we'll go to that elevation. So that's the south elevation. There might be a small light over that door there, but if you look at the, there's actually, that's a messy photo, but here it looks like there's a good fence area between the apartment. When I did street view, it looks like there's a good fenced area that goes up, and I believe that door wouldn't be above that fence line for a lighting for that entrance door of the elevation there. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I didn't see a copy of the application.
I had sent the application with the notice at the beginning, and so I didn't include it. I have it today if you want a copy of it. That was a mistake on my part. I apologize.
Like, normally we see the application. And they had to do a new one because they're new owners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it, if there's no more questions.
Commissioners, any more questions about that part?
So they're putting in existing curb and ramp, reconstruct, it's gonna be ADA. Is there any reason why we wouldn't require them to redo the sidewalk around the site?
There's an existing sidewalk around the
Yeah,
site,
yeah.
and so I think the improvements, they're working with Public Works right now about how those improvements need to be made to meet ADA standards for
Yeah,
sure.
it's
So
just
the
that
improvements
corner
are
apron.
required, yeah.
And
And they
then
will be doing those,
into aprons, but
yeah.
seems like could be beneficial to have new sidewalk.
Yeah.
You know.
What kind of condition is the current sidewalk? I didn't notice.
No.
It looked okay from the Google Street View.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It looked like it was in good shape when I did a
Well, it
Google.
looked
I
like
kind of
it-
you can walk the whole site really well on Google Street View, actually.
Yeah, I don't
So-
remember anything that...
That's your dog. Who knows?
Okay, the applicant may now present testimony and arguments. Applicant? Is the applicant
Or you
present?
can see the
Yeah,
sidewalk
he's
all the way around.
coming up, I think.
That's a better picture.
We got the owner and the applicant.
Hi. State your name for the record, please.
Is Hans Tigerson. My address is 14020 Southeast Johnson Road, Suite 102, Milwaukee, Oregon. And I'm the owner, and I appreciate you guys' time tonight. And with me as the applicant is my land use planner, Bob Sanders, and I'll let him speak.
Bob Sanders, and I'm at the same address that Hans just gave. And we are presenting the same building to you. Unfortunately, in the process of going through getting the county building permit signed off, it took much longer than we anticipated, and we came in late to this game and did not realize that the previous approval was expiring, and it was into the first of this year before we got final sign-off from the county planning or county building, and they referred us to planning, and it was sort of a surprise. We thought everything was approved and ready to go, and we were ready to start building, but we've now come back to you to bring the same proposal to you and to redo our land use planning approval and move forward quickly. And as Liz said, we have everything signed off with the county building. We are working with Jim Wynot to get the Public Works approval on the last pieces of his request so that we can move forward quickly with it.
Good. Is there anything else you'd like to submit? Questions from the commission? So it's basically, if I understand correctly, it's really the same plan that was submitted in 2017. It all looks the same.
That's correct. And we brought the sample boards, the same one that was brought last time. Same building, same elevations, everything is same. Our previous owner had worked on a couple of things and the lighting and a few things before we got involved with it, and so we're trying to finish up all those last details and bring back a finished product.
Does anyone want to look at the color boards?
Sure.
If I remember right, it was about the same scheme as what's across 82nd Drive with the coffee shop, and so you were using the same color schemes as the surrounding.
That could be. We were not involved at that time when the architect,
Okay.
but it's the same architect, the same board, so.
Good.
I know, it looks good to me too.
Yeah, it looks like basically the same layout. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. If we have further questions, we could call you
Okay,
back.
thank you.
Thank you. Now's the time for public testimony. Do we have any cards?
We have one from Gary Kirk.
Gary, are you, for, opposed, or neutral?
I'm neutral. I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was here. My name is Gary Kirk. I was here. What was it? November 2017. So I remember a lot of you.
You own the apartments?
Yeah, I have the
Right.
apartments there. My concern, a lot of the stuff has already been answered. One of my concerns was the lighting, and that I think that's pretty much taken care of. I was concerned about the bleed off. They addressed that the last time, and I don't know that the new owners. I don't know that they need to address that, or if they will, or whatever.
So that was the dark sky thing we were talking about a little while
Right,
ago,
exactly, yeah. So I think we're good on that. There shouldn't be a bleed off on my apartment, should there?
No, in
There
fact, that
from-
was a condition we still have it on.
Yeah, that condition just got
And there
transferred
was
into this.
quite a bit of discussion at that 2017 meeting about
Right.
that. And I think actually it'll be an improvement probably over,
Yeah,
a year later
Yeah.
from the new lighting plan that's been submitted or will be.
Okay, great, yeah. It's a nice looking building.
It is.
Then that property is just a little bit higher than my property, and I was worried about the drainage, about some kind of a spill off there or anything, and I addressed that last time. So I guess I'm just bringing it up. I didn't really know what to expect tonight, so I just thought I'd come in here and see what's going on.
Maybe Jim could help address the drainage issue?
Jim, did you want to talk about drainage at all or anything?
I can just say they're meeting all of our standards, so they're still doing that. That's part of the public works approval process, so they're meeting all the stormwater detention treatment and all that.
Okay, I'm sure everything will be fine. And then the landscaping would be on the south side next to the fence. I just kind of wanted to get an idea what they were going to do there.
Yeah, it looks like on the south side there's just the 2 trees and then some smaller, I can read it a little bit better I have another plan set here. There are smaller shrubs along that boundary line there. My glasses aren't working. Yeah, they're all lower growing shrubs that are going in, and then 2 trees at each of those larger square islands. And so that's all it would be. And the trees are vine maples, so they're not going to be massive trees. I think they'll top out at like 25 feet.
Okay, well, let's see, I think that's it. No, my other question was going to be when will the construction start, but it sounds like they're ready to go on it. I think this is the second or third time that you've been through this.
Third, actually.
Is this the third time?
Yeah. 2008, 2017,
Yeah,
2019.
Yeah, I saw a sign out the front there. It said, what was that?
Chair broke.
Oh, no,
Are you all right?
Are they okay?
I think we're getting new chairs in the Civic Center, so don't worry about it.
Ooh. Anyway, there was a sign out front that said they were going to start the construction like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So anyway, okay.
All right, well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Does the applicant wish to provide any rebuttal testimony? Does staff have anything they wish to add or recap?
Yeah, it looks like in my drafting of the decision I had repeated the Section 5 recommendation is a repeat of conditions of approval, so I'll be striking that from the final decision.
So which part?
Do you have the up there?
No, it's page 10 of the staff decision.
So special conditions were just attached to the end of the last decision, and the updated special conditions are at the front of the staff report.
Yeah, so it's just a repeat of the same condition.
We would just be deleting Section 5.
Does any member of the commission have questions or regarding clarification of the testimony at this point? And if there are no further questions, I will close the public testimony portion of the hearing.
I will make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Malachi and Commissioner Poole, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. None opposed. The public testimony portion is closed. Deliberation, are there any further questions of staff from the commission? So I think we could ask Jim or Fire Chief.
Means we kind of already went through all this.
Discussion?
I don't have any discussion. I don't.
No.
You?
No.
I'm good.
I think we can go ahead and make a motion.
All right.
Unless anybody else has anything to...
I move the commission approve design review Z0079-19-D with conditions pursuant to the staff recommendation as submitted.
I second.
Commissioner Malachi and Commissioner Wentz, please call the roll.
Commissioner Langston?
Yes.
Commissioner Natalie Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Malachi?
Yes.
Commissioner Poole?
Yes.
Commissioner Wentz?
Yes.
Chair Rowlett?
Yes, approved. Thank you, and we're looking forward to seeing that. All right.
Nice addition.
Okay, next is a discussion of the Planning Commission's annual work plan. Do we have handouts?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So every board and commission in the city of Gladstone does an annual work plan. I think city council had a pretty lengthy meeting. Were you there?
Mm-hmm.
So they're, obviously they're a lot busier than we are, and so they spend a lot of time on this. And I met with administrator, city administrator, and our liaison to the to the city council, and we discussed some of the things that we could and should be working on, and we agreed on these things for the Planning Commission's work plan for 2019. So let's discuss that, and maybe we could make a motion to submit to City Council if that's our work plan, if everyone agrees. So one of the things on the work plan are the expiration of the approvals of, like we just did, to extend those. Elements of the Gladstone revitalization plan, address affordable housing, and land use training for the commissioners. So, honestly, if we can get through that, I think we've done a really good job. So,
Yeah.
And that's part of why, I met with Tom and Jackie, and we just threw a bunch of stuff out there, and we talked about everything from homeless shelters to, building a tower to attract tourists with a candle on top. And, realistically, I think these are things that the public is going to really appreciate, that if we can get these things done and get some stuff submitted to City Council. And they're just buried, of course. Everybody is right now. And like Tammy said at the last City Council meeting for the state of the city, it's like, if you look at what the city really has done in the last year, it's like an insane amount of work. And if you look at the 10 years that lapsed between the time I was on the Planning Commission to the time I came back, it's like, holy moly. Things have really changed. and nothing was even supposed to be moving during that time. Everything, if you talk to people, it's like, the city was stagnant until a couple of years ago. So, you don't see, it's like watching your kid grow up, you see them every day, and then all of a sudden they're taller than you are. It's like, how'd that happen? Right? And I think that's the way it is, but this past year has been insane, the amount of stuff that's been done here. So I think, what do you guys think about these things here?
Well, we just got these to read, so it's hard to... I mean, of course, a little bit of a red flag for the vertical housing development zone. But I don't even want to talk on that until I would read the rest.
Well, we're not adopting anything. These are things we're going to work on. So, I think, and part of the revitalization, parking is going to be in there. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be in there.
Yeah.
And addressing affordable housing, I know everybody has personal opinions about stuff. If you drive down Oakville Road and see a 4-story apartment building abutting a cul-de-sac, I mean, those are things we should definitely talk about, right? I mean, those are things that, and that's what the purpose of this is, and these are the things that are going to be on the work plan. We're not suggesting or adopting anything. We're going to, at our meetings, we're going to have these things, we're going to pick them out and start going for it. So the municipal code part, we got somebody consultant that's doing some work on that now as part of a grant.
There's 2 number 2s.
There is.
Yeah. There's actually 4 things and 2 number 2s, which I don't think the intent was to kick one of the 2 out.
No, we have 4
good
things.
Point. So just as a 10,000 foot overview, do you think these are important things that we should work on? And
the municipal code, yes. In regards to implementing elements of the Gladstone revitalization plan, do we have parameters of what they want us to try to get implemented? City council meeting? So we're going to need to get some feedback from City Council.
We'll get, if we're going to do a work session, we'll get material with that to work on.
Okay, good.
So these are the 4 things that we picked out as we thought we could accomplish between myself, Tom, and Jackie. And like I said, we kicked a lot of cans around about a lot of stuff, and everybody, parking is a very big issue in this city, and I think that's going to come into a lot of these, like the municipal code parts, the revitalization, affordable housing, and maybe the land use training.
So the first item under the revitalization, I'm a little nervous about the way it's worded, just because it makes it sound like we're just going to implement the recommendations that were given rather than debate them and decide whether we want to or not.
Well, all of these are things that we're going to work on and that we'll recommend to City Council. So when we're done with one part of this, then we'll say this is what we recommend to City Council.
I can provide a little background too on that. In the revitalization plan, there was an attachment of recommended changes to the comprehensive plan and the zoning code. I think the intent of that statement is to
that
implement.
is actually my point.
That's
so
his
those
concern.
recommendations often ignored what all the citizens said, and so we don't want to just accept them all blanket and implement them.
Right. I don't think they've narrowed in on that at all since the revitalization plan, though, to my knowledge. But John Southgate would, and Jackie can weigh in on that one.
So at some point we can recommend to the City Council when we actually work on these things, well, no, we don't, this is what we think, this is what's suggested, this is what we think, we submit that, and then,
they make the final
ultimately
decision.
it's their decision. So all the stuff we're going to do, they're going to see. So these are the things that we agreed that the planning commission should work on. And if y'all agree, then we can say we'll submit that to the city council as our work plan for 2019.
Regarding the land use training, are we talking about having someone come in and give us further training, or actually go somewhere to get further?
That's what we need to work on. That's
Okay.
one of our work plans. And
Okay.
then we'll recommend to city council that, if, for instance, we did talk about it a little bit,
Okay.
it's like, no, you know, Jackie's like ready to send us all down to Corvallis or somewhere. And I said, we can't do that because besides Pat, we all have a job that we go to or work that we do that we'd have to take a day off to do, and that's just too much money to justify that.
Yeah, it is. It
And
would need to be in the evening or
that's
on a
what we have
weekend.
to, when we work on this, we'll say to city council, here's what we think our training should be.
Okay.
So it's a work plan.
Okay.
I still take issue with number 2, implement elements of Gladstone revitalization. Ugh, it's not going to come out.
I know
Number
what you
2, because it does, I think it implies that we are going to recommend what was suggested, and I don't know that I could recommend that flat out. I just don't know.
elements.
Well, we got those recommendations, remember? We already looked at that.
Mhm.
And you had some issues with stuff like that, and, you know, frankly, I think a lot of people agreed with a lot of stuff you had to say. So when we work on this, we're just going to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we decide to submit to city council when we're done working on that doesn't have to be what's on there.
As long as it's clear that they are not going to get what they want, just a rubber
No,
stamp.
we're not going to just rubber stamp whatever it is. This
Okay.
is our opportunity for Les to make some speeches and
Which I could probably come up with something if I'm tempted.
It's for us to get a little
You're
creative
good at
too.
it, and you know, you guys are pretty passionate about certain things, and so am I. I mean, that's what we're here for. And then as a group, we're going to agree or disagree on some
or come
of
up
these.
with a different suggestion altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our work plan to work on that stuff instead of city council just saying, you know, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. If the planning commission says no, we don't want to do that, or we want to do this instead. That's what the work plan is.
Right.
We're going to work on these things.
But I also see that the one that's documented is, of course, the downtown plan here. And I recall a gentleman making a presentation in December about some deliverables, and what we're going to find is that we could spend forever on just the downtown plan. I don't say that to be cynical.
No, I know.
I'm saying that what's doable, what's deliverable in the near future, you know, that's going to be real critical, because I'd be the first person to say, let's get that bridge built across that river.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the thing that happens probably last. So I think a lot of it comes down to prioritization of, you know, where do we focus, what's doable, because that's what's driving this.
And that's what we're going to work on.
Yeah.
And then when we make our recommendations to city council, there may or may not be what's been submitted by the consultant or what city council wants to see, but that's why we're going to work on it. And so
are we going to do, like, pick, how do you want to do this in the sense of including one of these items at each planning commission meeting?
That's to be determined.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We just, first of all, we could say, no, we don't want to do a work plan, or yes, we do, and yes, this is what we want to do. Well, actually, we have to.
Right.
We have to submit a work plan as part of the city charter or code or something.
Yeah.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Out of these 4 items, maybe, I mean, I know these were suggestions, these weren't prioritized during your meeting, were they?
We agreed, myself, city administrator, and the city council liaison agreed that these should be the things that we're working on.
Right, but what I'm saying is, are they in the order that they want us to attack first?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do we all think we can do all 4?
You know what?
This is in a 1-year period, right?
This
Okay.
is actually...
Not next meeting?
Oh, no, this would be in a 1-year period.
It's a calendar year.
Yeah.
And we're already almost through the first quarter. So I honestly think that we're not gonna get done.
I
But
agree.
I think we need to try.
That's why I was going to say, as a body, governing body, whatever, the commission, which two does everybody think would be the most high priority items to attack?
Number one and number one.
I think that once we submit the work plan, then city council probably give us some direction on that.
Well, and regarding the
But-
affordable housing, my understanding is we're actually waiting on something for
Mhm.
that one. Right, there's some
Correct.
date down the road we're waiting
Correct.
on.
And I think city council will give us direction on that.
I'm happy to give background on that project because I've been working on it as the planning side project manager. So right now we're done. The consultant's done with the final kind of code audit document. They're going to be presenting it in kind of a stakeholder task force meeting. Then there would be a public, larger stakeholder meeting presentation where public comment and feedback is received. Following that, another smaller advisory committee meeting, and then it would be presented before a planning commission and city council, the recommendations of the code audit. There is talk that from DLCD that there's going to be another round of grant for implementation
And that's
of
for
the
the affordable
recommendations. This is for number 3, the second number 2. So we do anticipate to get a second round of funding for implementing the code audit recommendations. So hopefully we can, keep momentum on that project. It is continuing to move forward. If you would like to see the code audit document that they've prepared, I'm sure it's, publicly available at this
And I'm
point,
on
so.
that committee, and the first meeting is this coming Wednesday.
Yep.
Not tomorrow, but a week from
27th.
Wednesday.
Okay.
And it's a diverse group, and it's it's not just people from Gladstone either, although it affects us, but it's a pretty diverse group of people on that. And there's 2 meetings that I'm going to attend. So the first one, from what I understand, is that they'll look at it and then throw the stuff around for discussion.
When is the meeting for planning commission anticipated?
We haven't scheduled that yet, just because we're still trying to schedule the larger public stakeholder meeting. But we anticipate maybe May or June at this point. I haven't seen a revised schedule recently.
We'll
but
have
it
public
would be
hearings on these things too, I think, right?
Yes, so there'd be a planning commission hearing, where no, formal decision or action would be made to amend the code, nothing
It's
implementation.
a legislative type of...
It would just be reviewing it and then having kind of an informal recommendation, like the downtown revitalization plan, to city council, whether or not you support the recommendations or have changes, and then it would go to city council after that.
things like the parking and stuff like that. That's where we can, really, if we agree as a group for our recommendation, to make those things known. And the public, of course, will be here for some of that, I'm sure. All right. So, somebody want to make a motion that we submit this as our annual work plan?
I make a motion we submit this as our annual work plan.
Commissioner Wentz, second.
A second.
Commissioner Langston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no or nay. None opposed. Great. We have a work plan. All right. Business from the commission.
I don't have any tonight.
I have none.
Just a quick heads up that I went down and took some photos of the bridge that's going to be closed, going to get the work done on it, and I'm glad they're doing it. You look at the Oregon City side, and it's the concrete pier, and our side's got the old wooden trestle. But it also is going to block that for a while, and we all know about that. So just I'm trying to let folks know ahead of time. Took a couple pictures and said just be aware, because there's nothing like showing up and going, they closed the bridge. And so it's going to be great to get it done, but recreation matters here, and we know that folks are going to be saying, where's our bridge? And
yeah, I just heard from Jessica, and it sounds like her and Tammy have been in contact about starting to put out notices at bike shops and starting to do that whole public notice.
Good.
They're
Thank
looking
you.
to start working I think July is what they're pushing for right now, 'cause the decision will be finalized on the 22nd, and so they'll be able to put it out to bid at that point in time. It sounds like their
Good.
the West group is on. They have their whole public outreach group
Right.
starting to get all those things out to get that notification up for sure.
Thanks.
The SEI, you all received an email about doing your statement of economic interest. We need to get those done.
By April 15th.
Really? That's pretty quick. Get your taxes done and get your SEI done. And then just, I'm part of that group for the code audit. And I think we're all doing a good job here. And
When's our next meeting?
In a month.
What?
I
Well-
think it's the third Tuesday. I think we're going to have meetings every month.
Because we've got work
lots
to do.
so,
Yeah.
any questions that anybody has or concerns, let's, funnel those through me and Tammy for now. So please don't contact staff or the attorneys, or the attorney will start charging us the second you send them an email, and we don't want that.
Nobody from here has contacted the attorney, have they?
Not recently.
Not recently,
Oh.
but let's keep it that way
Okay.
as much as possible. Or Melissa, if you have questions, I really, because Tammy probably knows more about what's going on than anybody.
No,
And-
not really.
and she probably has a way to find out.
I only contacted
Melissa
you when I
might
was
already
sick.
know the answers, and we don't need to ask her because she charges us too by the hour.
What?
And, all right. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn our planning commission meeting.
Natalie Smith and
Second.
Commissioner Wentz. We're adjourned. Thank you.